Thinking about this, I'm glad they got it out here for us.
You know, comprehend it.
Oh, I disagree with that.
Good afternoon. I hereby call this agenda review meeting of the Nacogdoches ISD Board of Trustees to order. Let the record show that a quorum is present, and notice this meeting was legally posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meeting Act. Board members Dr. Groman and Pastor James Irwin were able to attend the meeting today. I'd like to remind everyone that all items on the agenda today are for discussion only. No action will be taken at this meeting. Please join us in turning off your cell phones to silent mode. Public comment. Thank you for your interest in Nacogdoches ISD. We have set aside the portion of the meeting to receive input from the public regarding items on the posted agenda. This is our transition plan in keeping with newly adopted House Bill 2840. Each person desiring to speak must have already completed and submitted the proper public comments form. In order to hear from as many patrons as possible, allow for efficient meeting, each speaker has a maximum time of 3 minutes. If we have more than 10 speakers, each speaker will have a maximum time of 2 minutes. This is a public meeting of the Nacogdoches Board of Trustees, governed by the Texas Open Meetings Act, and not a meeting of the public. Further, this is not the forum to initiate or continue a complaint about students or staff. We have established policies and procedures for that. Speakers are reminded comments in this forum must be directly connected to the posted agenda items. Comments are not to be directed to the Board of Trustees and not to the audience or staff. The board will not engage in or respond to comments other than to seek clarification from the superintendent where necessary. We have one speaker registered to speak. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the board. Mr. Michael Morton will keep time for us, and I will notify the speaker when that time is expired. Ms. Michelle Speck is our speaker. Ms. Speck, will you come? Peck? Ms. Speck, you have 2 items on consent agenda, 3G and 5A. 3G is an item that you'll be able to speak to. 5A is an item that will not be allowed to be item posted to be heard in closed meeting. So speak only to 3G, please. And Ms. Peck, we turn it over to you.
Good afternoon, President Neal, board members, and Interim Superintendent Fraley. I'm concerned with the public perception of the board's authority, and I want to leave you with a few questions when you're reviewing policy today. Mike Moses Middle School continues to release walkers and car riders from school before the end of the school day. At huddle time, I asked Mr. Fraley if this is happening at other schools and whether the practice aligns with board policy. Mr. Fraley said, and I quote, "I'm not going to answer your question. You know better than that. We've been through this already. I'm done with you." I'm not done with Nacogdoches ISD. I'm a parent of 2 students, and we're trying to adhere to district processes and policies. When practice conflicts with policy, it's confusing. Page 74 of the 2019-20 student handbook reads, "State rules require that parental consent be obtained before any student is allowed to leave campus for any part of the school day. For students in elementary and middle school, a parent or otherwise authorized adult must come to the office and sign the student out."
Mr. Neal? Yes. Guidelines are that we don't continue complaints. This is a level 3 complaint being heard by this board and ruled by this board.
Mr. Fraley, with all due respect, House Bill 2840 lets me address an agenda item, and that's what I'm trying to do.
And the board has developed the transition plan as well, that the law allows for as well.
The transition plan is not compliant with the law. It has not been voted into board policy, and until there's a policy governing the board's adoption.
So which part of item 3G?
Board authority is what I'm discussing, Mr. Fraley, and it's President Neal's meeting, and I would ask if he has a problem with what I'm questioning or what I'm asking, that he ask those questions to me, please.
Mrs. Peck, since this has been discussed at level 3, this is a complaint, so we ask that you not at this time. Will you please?
Respectfully, Mr. Neal, this question has not been answered in the hearing of the level 3 complaint. I want to know, from your perspective, Mr. Neal, how releasing students from campus before the school day follows the school handbook. The second question that I have, and if you wonder why I'm still asking this question, is because I'm concerned about student safety. Kids can disappear in 4 minutes. This practice also disrupts the last period and cuts classroom learning time. Minutes matter in the classroom, and 4 minutes lost a day adds up to more than 11 and a half hours each year. As policymakers, I ask you, why aren't you asking this same question? 3 months ago, I submitted a Public Information Act request for correspondence in any form between Nacogdoches ISD board members and Mr. Fraley between the dates of April 19th and May 20th, 2019. I received about 28 emails, primarily between Mr. Fraley and Trustee Winslow, with a note that my request was complete. I pressed and I received 13 or so additional emails, primarily from Trustee Fitch, not returned in the prior search. According to Mr. Fraley, or according to the response, Mr. Fraley has not otherwise communicated with board members.
Mrs. Peck, thank you. You may be. Thank you.
I request that the time not used by me be extended, President Neal.
Ms. Peck, you may be. Thank you for responding. You may
All right.
proceed.
I will send the rest of my comments to the board. I just ask that you ask these questions. Don't leave them to parents to ask these questions. We elected you to be our trustees of this district. Thank you.
Ms. Peck. Board, we will continue with consent agenda. We will discuss items from consent agenda at this time. Board meeting minutes. Any questions or comments on board meeting minutes? Board members? We will continue then with item B, business office reports. Ms. Barbrick, if you would.
Good afternoon, President Neal, board members, interim superintendent Fraley. I'd like to begin with the budget amendments, and you will find those on page 20. Item A, we are transferring $550,000 from our technology fund into the general fund, and this is to purchase the second installment of our interactive flat panels for the classrooms.
Yes.
Item B, this is pulling funds from fund balance to finish the grease trap project that was began at Malcolm Rector Technical High School.
Okay.
Item C is pulling funds from fund balance to finish several projects that were started last year. These projects include the LED project, the plant services white building roof, the 9th grade center room, the high school office entry, and the high school AP and counselor's office. Do you have any questions on those budget amendments?
Thank you. Board members, any questions for Mrs. Barbrick? Will you continue the budget amendments, ma'am? Thank you. Donations? Excuse me.
I'm sorry, I'm afraid there are some missing here. We had
We could come back
donation.
with help.
Okay. All right.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, next are donations.
Donations.
Under $2,500. We have several that are listed there. We had donations for our convocation. Regay Elementary had donations, paints, brushes, and tables, and time from Walmart employees. A donation of art supplies from the SFA Office of Development. A donation of $1,200 for Novel Engineering Day from NIPCO, and a donation of school supplies from Walmart. BQJ had a donation of $1,500 from Jamie Rodriguez State Farm Insurance, and a donation of $1,249 was received for student backpacks and staff shirts from the Greater East Texas Community Action Program. And then in the Teaching and Learning Department, a donation of pizza was given for the new teacher orientation from the Association of Texas Professional Educators.
Thank you, Ms. Barbrick.
In our donations over $2,500, we had a donation of $5,000 from Walmart for technology school improvement.
Ms. Barber,
Yes.
what specifically was that for? I mean, it says technology, improvement for technology in school. Is there a specific item that we're gonna utilize that for?
I don't have that answer.
You
I
want
can check on that for you.
It was for Brigade School, so,
Yes.
well,
The next item actually was presented to you the last month, the $8,870 for the body-worn cameras for the officers.
yes. Thank you, Ms. Barber. And again, we want to thank our community for the support of our school district and our students for all the donations. So thank you, community, for your support.
The next item is our investments.
Yes, ma'am.
We pulled $2 million out from our Texas class for general fund expenditure, general operating expenditures. And then we received our income, which was the notable income earned was $134,702 for our bond funds.
Yes, ma'am.
Any questions on the investments?
Board, any questions on the investment report? Thank you, Ms. Barber.
And then if you have any questions on any of the other items, I will try to answer those.
Thank you. Board, any questions on the miscellaneous business officer reports?
I do, but I gotta scroll down through
Okay,
here.
thank you.
The 2 classroom facilitators, I think it's on page 86. What, could you explain, is this to do with the math teachers that we struggled with?
That exactly is what it is.
Okay, so
we have 2 aides in the 2 classrooms to help facilitate the online
The
teacher.
online learning.
Taking roll, keeping
Okay.
discipline under control.
Okay.
Board, any other questions? Ms. Barber, on the budget amendments, you okay back to number 1? You want to?
I will need to
Okay.
search for that.
Thank you, Ms. Barber. Purchase over $25,000, and we'll go to Dr. Hill, Professional Services, Instructional Resources Contracts. Dr.
Sure.
Hill?
Good afternoon, President Neal, Interim Superintendent Fraley, and Board of Trustees. So there are 5 different ones mentioned. Item 1 is our PSP. It's a primary service provider, which is required by TEA for our 2 T-TIPS campuses. We've been utilizing her services last year and this year. Item number 2 is a cooperative for Title I, Part A. It is one that we often purchase from Region 7. It's just that the price exceeded the $25,000 this school year. Number 3 is our SFA STEM Academy invoice for approximately $120,000. That was the amount of our invoice last year, even though our enrollment increased in our cohort 6, which we're very proud of. Item number 4 is an annual purchase of Mentoring Minds instructional resources. As of late Thursday evening, though, I did receive an updated quote that has decreased the price. And if I need to update the board action sheet for Thursday evening, I will do so. But the price has come in at $116,419.33. So you see some savings there on that particular quote.
Thank you.
And then item number 5 is Edgenuity. That's our online curriculum portal that we use at Malcolm Rector as well as at NHS.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Board, any questions, comments on professional services?
Yes, if you don't mind, I just had a quick
Mhm.
comment on the STEM. I know you made a good point there. You said it's the same amount we paid last year, but we did, it's my understanding, our cohort, our freshman cohort's like twice the size, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
So.
We increased to 53 this
All
year.
right, so, which is exciting, that's wonderful. So are we getting a decrease there or something? Or how does that float out, that it's the same cost, but we increased our cohort size?
It's my understanding in visiting with Dr. Redfield is that SFA has absorbed the additional cost.
Wow, that's incredible.
Now that she can't make that promise for the 2020-21 school year if we
Right.
continue to see the increase, but this year they can absorb that extra cost for us.
That's amazing.
Yes, ma'am.
That's a wonderful partnership. Please
Yes, ma'am.
express our sincere gratitude to those guys.
Absolutely, yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Board members, any other comments? Dr. Hill, the next item then is proximity learning.
Sure. This is, I believe, on page 105 on your, in your board book, as well as the contract and the quote. And so, yes, we had a shortage of math teachers at the high school.
Yes, ma'am.
And so I did acquire some additional information from Dr. Crespo, and he is in the audience if there are more specific questions. So we have 2 different proximity classrooms, hence the 2 facilitators that Ms. Winslow, I believe, just asked about in the amendment section. And so these facilitators are facilitating geometry classes, AP statistics, an algebra class, as well as, I believe, advanced qualitative reasoning.
Great.
My question to Dr. Crespo is, are we looking at what we're going to try to do within the next year to be able to fill those positions with staff that we can keep as NISD staff?
So we are actively seeking math teachers. This is not just a Nacogdoches ISD problem. It is nationwide. I'm going to be talking to our HR department about assisting us in acquiring more. I know there's a bunch of job fairs that are going on. We're going to be constantly looking for math teachers. We're working with SFA right now on their interns. There's about 7 or 8 that we're going to be utilizing this year and try to encourage them to stay in Nacogdoches and work with us. Hopefully, we might get 1 or 2 for next semester, but definitely we have more choices coming in the fall of 20. We are actively seeking. Last year when I first got here, the first thing they told me was, you're going to have to hire 3 math teachers. This was the day I arrived. Great. So let's see the number of candidates that we have. 0. I said, okay. We got a job to do. So we were looking and looking. We had to hire some long-term subs. That I didn't want to have that same thing happen this school year, because with the subs are great, but if you don't have the content knowledge, our kids are the ones that are hurting over that. So in this particular case, we looked everywhere for different options for our children and thought this was the best route for now, in the time being. And I think having a certified live screening teacher in front of you is better than having somebody that's trying to figure out what the content is. You have somebody that knows the content and somebody in the classroom that's actually monitoring the students. So they're working on it. They're gaining access to that content knowledge. Those proximity teachers are also meeting with our departments to make sure that we're aligned with the curriculum, that they're not going off and doing something totally different than what our other teachers are doing. So we're meeting with our teachers weekly to make sure that our kids are all on the same page in every class. It's a different kind of learning. They call it online, but technically it's not online. It's not a recorded video. This is a live feed. The kids are able to ask questions. And as you know, in a regular classroom, kids struggle enough asking questions in the classroom because they're shy and I don't want to raise my hand. Here, they're able just to put in the chat like they do on their phones every day, chatting with their buddies. So they can secretly, anonymously put in a question that normally they would be embarrassed to do in a regular classroom. So they're able to grant the access that they're usually doing on a daily basis. But even though we have that, we would prefer a face-to-face teacher. We're actively seeking. I know there's an SFA job fair coming up next month, and we will be there recruiting heavily.
And you think this will be sufficient for this coming year then?
Yes.
And
Yes,
hopefully be able to send it next year?
This is sufficient for now. It's not our last
Right.
opportunity.
Okay.
We also lost a teacher at the beginning of the year due to health reasons, so that was another, Ms. Norman will be back soon. That'll help out a lot. That's why we have one of the algebra classes in the proximity class right now. That will definitely pick up when she returns.
Thank you, Dr. Crisp.
I'd like to say, I know it's not ideal, but I appreciate I'm going to call it out-of-the-box thinking to address this. This is an issue, math teachers, an issue that we've struggled with since my daughter was in school. And I do know a long-term sub is not the solution because they do not get the foundation that they need, the students need, to move on through more advanced, particularly in math. So while it's not ideal, I do want to applaud you because I think it's a very creative solution to the problem while we continue to try to attract good quality math teachers to our faculty. So thank you for that. And I'd love to kind of hear back on how it goes because I, as far as I know, this is something new that we haven't tried in the district before. And I'd be really curious to know how the students do performance-wise, how they like it. You know, is this a potential solution we can use in other situations when we get into a bind? So, my thoughts there.
And I'd like to piggyback on what you said. It would be nice to get some students that have experienced this firsthand to come and tell the board how they're doing with that.
And I have to second Ms. Fitch. I had a list of questions based on just kind of reading about it, and you answered every single one of them. And I do believe, based on what you're saying and some of the feedback I'm getting, that this is a great way to kind of get around the fact that we couldn't hire teachers. These are key classes. And I know my children have all been through, and having good math teachers has been hard. So I appreciate that, and I'm just really encouraged that, you know, recruitment for those teachers. I know we lost some gems at one point, so I do appreciate that. Thank you for explaining it so thoroughly.
Yes, sir. Ms. Winslow, you're correct. Late past administration, we lost 3 highly qualified, Ms. Perkins, Ms. Adams, and Ms. Levitt, all in one time, and that's why we're struggling right now.
Thank you, Board. And Dr. Crespo, we appreciate you and your work to teachers. And Mr. Whitaker, thank you for HR and all the work that I know you've been done to recruit math teachers to our program. Thank you, Board, and thank you all for your work. We will continue with the next item. Dr. Hill, logical, excuse me. I was going to give you that one, Dr. Hill. I better give that to Logical Solutions to Mr. Rue and Mr. Morton. My apologies. Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, President Neal,
Yes, sir.
board members, Interim Superintendent, Mr. Fraley. Item 1 in front of you is Logical Solutions to put a new freezer cooler alarm system in 7 different campuses. We've had some issues with our current system. In fact, we had one freezer that went down. Ms. Robbins not very happy about that over in food service. So we need a better alarm system, a little more up to date, a little more current. So that's the current proposal in front of you. What questions could I answer?
How old is the current system that's in place?
Looking at Mr. Martin, who, when did Climate Tech come into the district?
I'll have to do some research on that, Mr. LaRue.
10, 12 years?
Ms. Fitch, yeah.
Over 10 years old.
Yeah.
Technology has improved a lot since then.
It has, we're hoping. That's our goal. And again, Ms. Robin is really hoping. It's not only the loss of food, it puts her in a real bind that day, trying to transfer stuff and cover stuff from other campuses, because she has just enough at each campus. So
Yes, sir.
that's where we are on that.
So is this basically for the food services office where this system needs to be installed?
No, this will be on our system. The way we have a food service and plant services has a pretty unique marriage. You know, we take care of the kitchens. We take care of the HVAC. We take care of all that. And in fact, one of her employees works out of our shop. Her appliance repair person works out of our shop and under our direct supervision, because it's more equipment and HVAC related. So this will be within the plant services system. The alarm that will go out, she'll get it, I'll get it, our director of HVAC will get it, and the hope is there that the one of us can respond in a timely fashion, figure out what the issue is.
Okay. Thank you.
And you mentioned that we've currently, or in the past, worked with Climatech. I see they made a bid as well, but you're very comfortable with LSI, the low
Yes.
low bidder?
Yes, yes. Climatech 2 years ago got bought out. Service
I
is
understand.
just not, we're just challenged with putting more money into standard what they've already got, and that's what they want to do. We'd like to move forward.
Thank you, sir. Board members, any other comments? While you're there, Mr. LaRue, will you go ahead to Southwest Material Handling?
Yes, next item is a Christmas project. We want to make sure we had something to do over Christmas. We're going to reshelf the warehouse, the main side of the warehouse, the biggest side. We're going to take everything out, and we're going to put in new shelves and put everything back, and we're going to try to do that over Christmas. Those are original equipment shelves over there. They've been bumped and tweaked, and it's time for replacement.
Thank you. Board members, you've not had an opportunity to go by the warehouse. It's a tremendous facility, and you all, thank you for that. We store a lot of materials that come in for the district. You want to talk, share a little bit about it?
It's also a partnership with teaching and learning. Our warehouse director is also our book purchaser and chief inventorier of books. It's also our holding ground for all of our testing materials. So within the warehouse is a secure room that very few people have keys for that has all the STAR test materials in it. All of the books come there by tractor trailer in pallets of books, and then they all have to be taken out of the boxes, labeled, put back in the boxes, and then chopped up into, we need X amount of books at BQJ and X amount of books at TJR, and then the principals have to come and make sure that's how many books they're getting. So it's quite a process. In addition to, we get all the UPS, we get all the FedEx, we get down to the post office and get all the snail mail. We get all the deliveries for the district except for food service. Food service gets their food delivered directly to their storage areas.
Mr. Drew, how many keys actually are out to individuals from the district for that warehouse? You said there were several keys, or only?
Well, for the key item I mentioned is for the testing.
That's what that's
testing material. I would have to look into that and see how many there are, but it's very limited. I want to say less than 5 people. Extremely limited. And everybody who has a key has had to go through a training that is kind of a big deal. And then I had to go through a separate training as a backup delivery person. When it comes time to move those test materials from the warehouse to the classroom, if our normal driver is unavailable, a couple of us got certified so that we could, so we had to go to Region 7 and go through a training and get all certified to make sure we understood. I feel like we need an armored vehicle.
Well, I just, because I'm glad that there's some procedures in place, because that is pretty touchy when you're talking about testing materials and stuff.
Yeah, the state has a very good protocol, and we follow that to the letter.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. LaRue. Thank you. Board, any other questions, comments? Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time.
Next item on the agenda, board, is order authorizing issuance of NISD unlimited tax refunding bonds, and we're going to turn over to Ms. Barbrick and the representative. Ms. Barbrick.
We are looking at, we have some bonds that are callable, and so we are looking at turning those over and selling at a lower interest rate. And Bob Henderson with RBC Capital Markets will be presenting that information to you.
Thank you, Ms. Sims. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barber. Thank you, Board President Neal, members of the board, and of course, Mr. Fraley. a pleasure to be back at Nacogdoches ISD. If you turn to page 2, you'll see that I am part of the team that assisted the school district with its $76 million issue. Unfortunately, our lead banker on this account, Mr. Greer, had an unavoidable conflict, and he sends his apologies for not being able to attend. I'm glad he couldn't. You know, I live in San Antonio for 30 years, but I'm a Northeast Texas boy from Marshall, so it's always fun to get back up to this part of the state. If you'll turn to page, behind tab 1, which would be page 5, you'll see a listing of the outstanding debt of Nacogdoches ISD. As Ms. Barbarick indicated, this really is not a terribly complicated concept. It's very similar to all of us who own homes, simply refinancing our home mortgages. You take out a mortgage at a particular point in time, you pay the interest rates that are commensurate with that market. As the interest rate markets change, you have the opportunity to refinance your home at lower interest rates. And that's really what we're talking about doing here. If you look at the table on the top, you'll see Unlimited Tax Refunding Bond Series 2010. There were originally issued an amount of $14.4 million. There's $9.4 million outstanding now. But in February 15 of 2020, in about 4 months, we'll have the opportunity to refinance that debt. You'll see that that debt is outstanding at 4%. You will see on the following page when I get there that we are anticipating being able to refinance that debt at about 2.25%, so about a 1.75% savings against approximately $8.5 million turns into some real money. But before we get to the next page, I want to point out the lower 2 charts. This is a bar chart that indicates what your outstanding debt looks like, and you can see that after the passage and the issuance of the $76 million in debt, you have a level debt service from year 29 on out to 49, but in the earlier years, we've got some higher debt service payments as a function of the previously issued debt of the school district. The debt that we're talking about refinancing pays off in 2028. And you can see it's very slight, but you can see that your debt service payments over the next couple of years are going to be slightly higher than the following 5 or 6 years, and then of course it drops off in 29. That's an important point that I want to have you focus on as I go to the next page. At the top of the next page, we talk about the outstanding debt of the districts being rated A1, which of course is A1 and A+, which of course is a great rating for a middle-sized school district in the state of Texas. Even with that rating, though, we're going to qualify for the permanent school fund guarantee and be able to issue your refinancing debts, your refunding bonds, at the same AAA rate that the $76 million bonds were sold. In the lower left-hand table, you're seeing 2 scenarios. Scenario 1 with level savings, scenario 2 with upfront savings. Mr. Greer had previously showed Mr. Fraley and Ms. Barbarick level savings, and that was the proper thing to do because under the Securities Exchange Commission rules, we have to show apples to apples so that you have an understanding of what the true savings are, giving the time value of money. But as we were looking at this, as Mr. Greer and I were preparing this presentation for today, we saw that there would be another option that the board might want to avail itself of, and that's an option of upfront savings. If you'll turn to the next page, 7, you'll have an understanding of what I'm talking about. If you go to column 11, you see that scenario 1 is level savings, which will produce about $85,000 a year in savings. We like it. It maximizes the savings. And again, under the Securities Exchange Commission rules, it's apples to apples. It's just like refinancing, again, your home on the same number of years that you have outstanding. But I want to draw your attention to page column 14. And you see that your INS tax rate, INS being interest and sinking, the tax rate that you use to pay your bonds. You've adopted a rate of 34.65 cents this year, and all other things being equal. When I mean all other things, please look at column 2. Column 2 on this page is your net taxable assessed valuation, and you can see that in the interest of conservatism, which Mr. Fraley is known for, we have assumed no growth in that tax base. In fact, you've been averaging about 2% per year in growth. But when we say all things, other things being equal, what we mean is holding that tax base constant. And then going back to column 14, you see that holding that tax base constant, your tax rate is going to go up to 36 cents and some change on the INS side. What scenario 2 does is tries to mitigate that a little bit. And if you'll flip to the next page, you'll see that on column 11, rather than having level savings, we're concentrating your savings in the first 3 years. The result of that being that rather than looking at your tax rate going up to 36 cents for the next 2 or 3 years, we're being able to hold it at 35 cents and some change. So saving the taxpayers of your district about a penny per year. But I want to note, if you look at column 10, we're not doing this by extending the final maturity of the debt. This is meeting all the requirements of a parameters resolution in the Texas Education Agency with respect to how to structure debt. So we're not extending your debt, but we are pushing the savings forward to give you a little tax rate impact. I know that's probably complicated, and although you guys should all ought to be able to understand my East Texas accent. But before I go to the next page, are there any questions about those two scenarios or the basic concept of refinancing your bonds?
Mr. Fraley, any comments you want to make?
Well, again, the main thing is looking back at column 2, again, the conservative assumptions that we would have no increase in the taxable values. It is highly probable that those values will go up, which will have a friendly effect on the tax rate.
Absolutely. Historically, you're going up about 2% a year, and our expectation is that you're going to have your tax rates falling faster than is showing here because of that growth.
Yep.
And this is not, again, not pie in the sky. This is what your historical growth rates have been.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, then well, the last page I want to focus on is page 9, which is the actual agenda item that you'll be addressing at your at your board meeting, which is an order authorizing the refinancing of this debt. And it's called a parameters resolution, and what it does is it delegates, per the 4th bullet point here, the authority to your superintendent and or the CFO to execute the actual final terms and conditions of that refinancing. It's subject to specific criteria that is approved by the board in advance. So even though you're delegating authority to your superintendent and your CFO, they cannot exercise that authority unless it meets these parameters. And there are 3 parameters that are listed here. One is that debt issue size cannot be over $10 million, and in fact, per the TEA, it cannot exceed on what we call a par-to-par basis, the amount of debt that we're refunding. The second thing is that we have to have at least 3% net present value savings for the authority to be delegated. Based on the numbers you saw previously, we're expecting something north of 7% net present value savings. So we're good in that regard. And then the third one is we are not extending this debt at all. We are maintaining the what's the word? Sanctity, for lack of a better word, the sanctity of the final maturity of the original bond transaction. Are there any questions about the parameters resolution?
Board, any questions on the parameter resolution?
In the interest of time, I'll skip the last section, which is really just a market update. If you have insomnia, please take time to read this evening. It will put you to sleep. But it just gives you a brief update on what the current bond market and interest rate environment looks like. I appreciate your time.
Mr. Henderson, thank you. We appreciate your work, your company's work. Thank you. Thank
Yes,
you very
sir.
much. Thank you. Ms. Bobbrick, thank you. Board, our next item is E, agreement to participate in Region 7 Education Service Center purchases cooperative for the 2019-2020 year. Ms. Bobbrick, Chief.
This is an annual process that we go through, participating in the Region 7 purchasing co-op.
Yes, ma'am. We've done this for several years.
Yes.
Board, any questions or comments on item E? Thank you. Item F, submission of class size waivers, the TEA. Dr. Hill.
Thank you, sir. You do have at your place an updated elementary enrollment form as of today. There is one change from last week, and it's a third grade classroom at Reggae that has been added as of this morning.
a third?
If that, in the action sheet, I'd only listed 2. Third grade, I apologize.
Oh, I see
And
what you're
so
saying.
there's a
There's
third.
another one
Yes, ma'am.
listed here that's highlighted.
I'm sorry.
No, I got you now.
Dr. Hill, would you share with the audience for the guidelines K through 4,
4, it's,
20.
class size can't exceed 22 to 1.
22 to 1?
And so as of today, we have 11 classrooms that exceed the 22 to 1.
We have 11 classes that are meeting at 22 to 1, is that what you're saying?
We have 11 that exceed.
All across the district.
And last year, I'll note, we had about 4 class size waivers in place.
Yes, ma'am.
By the end of the year last year, we didn't need any of them, if that makes sense. It kind of levels out.
It levels out.
Yes, sir.
I know you monitor that closely as throughout the district when students move from one area to the next, and so thank you for that.
I do have a couple of questions. You know, it always worries me when I see, and I know one of the waivers is for a kindergarten class. That always particularly worries me because I know how, that's a lot of kindergartners
Yes, ma'am.
in a room. And, you know, in looking at these numbers, sometimes I question the decision about adding, why aren't we adding another classroom versus keeping our enrollment up around 22 to 23 kindergartners, because that's a lot. But I also, I was glad to get this when I got here, because I also, what I saw was at that particular campus, Fredonia, we only have 3 classes anyway. So if we broke it down and went to 4, you'd be looking 4 at 15 or something like that, I think
Yes,
it
ma'am.
is. So I kind of go back and forth on that. So my point here is kind of twofold. Number one, I would personally really love to see those classroom numbers, particularly in kindergarten and first grade, go down closer to the 18. I noticed TJR has done a superb job of handling her enrollment over there for kindergarten, because I know how important those early foundational years are. My second question, or second point, would be, when we do have a teacher that's willing to take on 24 kindergartners, is there an additional stipend or something involved for that teacher that's taking on that additional work? And if not, can we consider that?
First answer, I do not believe so. The second answer is sure, we can. I do know in working with those, I don't want to speak specifically for Fredonia, but I know at NETI there is a kindergarten aide that is shared between the two. I don't want to make that assumption for Fredonia. There is one. Okay, thank you, Ms. Barber.
Yeah.
So it
I mean,
brings
and
it-
that's tough. I mean, even if you're a full-time teacher and you have a full-time aide in your classroom, if you've got
Sure.
23 or 24 5-year-olds running around on you, that's tough.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
I think any mom would agree with that.
I
Yes,
just
ma'am.
take one.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Right?
And I guess I kind of had the same concern as Ms. Fitch did about that, because as I look at some of our, where our schools are performing and some of the different metrics that we do get to see, I'm wondering, is it the same schools that have the higher students in a classroom in these younger years? I just wonder what the correlation is to that. I don't know if there's anybody that's looked at that, but I'm seeing big classrooms in some schools. I think I remember seeing some lower scores in, but I can't swear to that, but it does concern me that maybe we do need to look at, adding a teacher and breaking up those rooms. I'm just asking. I mean, to me, that's a big deal.
For a
Mr.
couple.
President, I know typically when you have this issue, you either can't find the staff or you don't have the classroom. And the direct correlation between the scores, there's some questions about that. We don't ask for waivers because we don't want to hire anybody. We don't hire folks, we can't find folks. And we don't have the classroom space. So we're not going to have an argument or disagreement at all with anything that you're saying.
Okay.
Just that on a daily management basis, we don't have the folks. And sometimes, at some point, they say, is it more disruptive to break up the class at this point in the year and have kids learn a new teacher, or continue with who we have and try to provide a little additional support, but maintain the classrooms. But ideally, it is to have smaller class sizes, especially at the younger ages. And if we have the staff and the classrooms, that we probably bring that forth. But we just don't have that right now.
So my question would be is then if we have these teachers that have 24 kids in their classroom, what can we do to support them with the amount of work they have to do with these 24 kids?
Well, I assure you, when we need something, we'll come to you. I promise you that.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Hill. Thank you. Board, on the second reading of task bill update 113, Mr. Morton.
Good afternoon, President Neal,
Yes, sir.
members of the board, Mr. Fraley. Again, this is the second reading of update 113. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Board, any comments or questions on update 113? Thank you, Mr. Morton. Dr. Hill is coming, Dr. Young, excuse me, is coming to appointment of School Health Advisory Council members. Dr. Young, thank you for your work.
Good afternoon, President Neal, board members, Interim Superintendent Fraley. Thank you for having me here today. We held a meeting on September 4th. It was an introductory meeting to the Student Health Advisory Committee. We held that meeting because there were some updates to Senate Bill 19, which allowed us to expand committee membership. So attached to your agenda item, you'll see that, or your action sheet, we have 19 people interested in being committee members, which includes the 6 required board members and 8 parents, which exceeds the number of parents required to be on the board. We're very pleased with the outcome that we have. We have committee members from SFA and representatives out of nursing, social work, counseling, the police department, nutrition, and several community members as well. Do you have any questions for me?
Dr. Hill, that is exciting to see the response from parents and the university partnership. This is exciting to see the interest in serving on the board. Board members, any comments or questions?
Very exciting, and I see a couple of folks I know there from SFA and their kinesiology and health science program, so that'll be a welcomed addition. Thank you for really revitalizing this effort.
Glad to do it. Thank you very much. Any other questions?
I was just going to say the same thing. I mean, it's good, it's exciting to see the parents on here too. I know we've struggled getting a lot of participation, so thanks for doing that.
Well,
Appreciate
one of
it.
the adjustments that we made last year at the beginning of the year, Dr. Hill and I talked about this, was to hold those meetings after school, which makes it more accessible to parents to be part of the program, as well as other working community members. We're very fortunate. We hold those meetings at the Student Support Services office in our little conference area that we have, and we offer coffee and snacks, which is always a good draw. But we have had a big participation. We probably had almost 30 people at that introductory meeting. So those on the list are the ones that agreed to be committee members, and then others will continue to attend as just liaisons.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Dr. Hill. Thank you, board. Next item, Mr. Owens, complaint internet safety report. So, Sept.
Good afternoon, President Neal, board members, and Interim Superintendent Mr. Fraley. First of all, I'd like to point out on page 483, my action sheet, there is a mistake. The Texas Education Agency under new guidelines, these are not new guidelines. These are the existing guidelines for the past few years, but released by the FCC. They require that anyone who uses E-rate funds, which we do for our internet and for our infrastructure, that we post public notice to the board that we are compliant. And there's a yearly report also given. Our policy is on page 484. This is the same policy you approved last year because there have been no changes in the state compliance. And on page 505 is just a quick report stating that we are compliant and what we do to stay compliant. That is also required that it is in the board minutes.
Thank you. It's important for the safety and security of our students, and we thank you for the efforts and the policy. Are there board members who have any comments or questions at this time?
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Owens. Board, the next item is for discussion and action agenda, and we're going to begin with item A. Consideration of nomination of candidates for the Nacogdoches County Central Appraisal District Board of Directors. We have two nominees, positions that the board nominate to serve on the appraisal district. Currently, Mrs. Fitch has served on there and has done a wonderful job. I've asked her if she would serve again. We had Steve Green, former board member, serving on there, and we thank him for his service. But we're going to ask Mr. James Montoya, and I'll talk with James. Would you consider serving? So we'll have two board members being nominated to serve on the appraisal district board of director, Mrs. Fitch and Mr. Montoya. So thank you. Board, are there any objections to moving that item to the consent agenda? Anyone of you all object to moving that to the consent agenda? We'll move that item to the consent agenda. Item B, consideration of district improvement plan and campus improvement plans. Dr. Hill.
Good afternoon. This is an annual requirement that the board approve the district and campus performance objectives. And so those are beginning on page 511. You'll notice that the majority of the campuses, or actually all of the campuses, there are 4 district goals. All of the campuses have utilized those goals, but then there are some individual campuses that have added additional goals specific to their campus. And so what we did as a committee this year, in combination with our community meeting held back on April the 4th, is align these. There's a document called the Effective Schools Framework with TEA that's been put out. And so we took some district commitments that we had from last year and then kind of merged them with the ESF this year. So you'll see that the goals are a little more broad in nature, if you will. They're not as specific, but that way it will cut down on some of the redundancy regarding the strategies that we might have seen under each goal.
Dr. Hill, I really appreciate reading the goals and the direction we're heading in. Thank you for all the work and all the campuses that work.
Thank you. It's definitely a committee effort.
Yes, ma'am. Board, do y'all have any comments or questions about the
I have a question. Since we do it normally every year, have the campuses meet the goals that they set, or they exceed, or they come short?
So every year we do formative assessments, and each campus has their campus improvement committee.
That's
and I don't know specifically, but our program allows us to evaluate our plan three times per year.
Right.
We do that at the district level as well. And so about 3 times a year we look at it and we do, I believe it's some progress, adequate progress, and then no progress. And there's an opportunity for each of the committee members to write specific notes on whether or not they met that particular performance objective. So the answer is, I'm not exactly sure specifically, but it is evaluated 3 times per year based on this committee.
Satisfactory?
Sir?
To the satisfactory?
Yes, sir. And it does, of course, allow us the opportunity that if a strategy is not met, to roll it over to this next year.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So when you say to increase something by 10%, you're comparing it to what you were obviously measuring it last year?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr.
Just one, and if it didn't meet it for the following year, for the coming year, then do you set different goals?
That's typically up to the committee to make that determination. In some instances, yes. In some instances, they may just hold to the current goal. But it's usually a committee decision on each campus.
Dr. Hill, this is good. And maybe at our retreat, maybe our principals can come by and give us a little bit more update on specifics, what they're planning on. If we can allow that time at the retreat, give us a little bit more time to let them just talk to us a little bit about the direction of our plans. Okay? Thank you. Board, are there any objections to moving this item to the consent agenda? Thank you. Thank you. We'll move this item to the consent agenda. C, consider approval of the guaranteed maximum price for new press box at the Dragon Stadium. Mr. Morton.
Actually, Mr. President,
Mr. Morton.
we want to, this item's not ready. We're still having some conversations about it, and we're going to have a meeting this afternoon, so I'd like to pull this at this time.
Okay, thank you, sir. The next item is D, consideration change order for the Nacogdoches High School baseball field. Mr. Morton.
Thank you, President Neal. We're asking the board to consider a change order with Hellas Construction Company to raise the outfield fence from 8 feet to 12 feet. The approximate cost for this would be $47,000. And what we're doing, in our original plans, it would start out at 12 feet in center field and taper down to 8 feet in left and right field, therefore shortening the field. What we're asking is for it to be 12 feet all the way around, which would 12-foot fencing, which would also make it look better. It would have a whole lot better appeal to it. It would accommodate the comparable field size. Right now, our field size is not as large as we'd like it to be. And also limit the number of balls being hit over the fence and possibly hitting cars going down the street. So we're asking that the board consider the change order for $47,000.
Mr. Morton, also for safety, I think about the boards going up and I mean, it'd be a safety factor for us, and so by being that higher, it will help us with that.
It's also help the opposing not to hit the home run.
Okay.
It does help with that, Coach.
So what you're saying is, right now, the plan is, before this change order, right
Yes.
now, the plan is 12-foot center field going down to 8 foot on each side.
Yes, ma'am.
And what the suggestion is, or the proposal is to just make it 12 feet all around.
All the way around. Yes, ma'am.
And would you consider this, we're doing a lot, we've got a lot of projects going on, is this the best highest use of this $47,000?
In my opinion, at this time, yes, ma'am, because we already have the company here and doing the work. It would cost us a whole lot more if we had to bring them back to do this later on. So while they're here, yes.
I guess my question would be is, are we taking money away from somewhere else to do this?
No.
No, sir. In fact, Ms. Barbarick, I think, is part of the amendments that were not there before in your sheets here on page 2. It's already budgeted for out of the local funds.
So the change was budgeted for? The change request, the
We
additional 47?
reviewed the budget to make sure that we could do this, and we can do this out of the currently adopted budget.
If I'm reading the budget amendment right, we're gonna pull these funds from fund balance. Yeah.
From our unfinished projects from last year from our, what we call our future projects.
Right, but that is fund balance versus budget.
Our fund balance is very healthy.
And I believe the original items that were to be pulled from fund balance were actually paid for out of the regular budget, so we didn't pull the other 1.9 million, whatever it was, from fund balance. It came from the regular budget instead.
My other concern is, I mean, we do have a lot of projects coming up on the horizon, and
And all these were factored in when we made the
Well, I
recommendation.
mean, you didn't, I mean, I'll just go ahead and, if you don't mind me jumping in.
Please do.
I mean, we didn't plan for the mold at the school, where we had to close the school down for a period of time. I mean, it just seems like there's one kind of thing after another that we keep having to dig into the fund balance. And, I mean, and athletics has gotten a lot of attention lately, and we still have a drill team that doesn't have a place to practice and gets moved around every day. They message to figure out where they're gonna meet. They get kicked out of a gym even when they have scheduled gym for a sport that's not even in season to have an open practice. Twirlers have no place to practice. They get bumped around. Cheerleaders have no place to practice. And, I mean, when are we gonna kind of look at our fine arts programs a little bit? But, I mean, athletics has gotten, a ton of attention lately, including coaching staff. And, $47,000 doesn't seem like a huge dollar, but I'm kind of interested in some of our other programs that may not be getting the attention they need.
Some balance.
And that is a concern for me.
If I could add, we did tremendous amount of work for fine arts this year that you all approved. We've talked about another facility for drill team and those types of folks, and $47,000 won't help or hurt that at all. And we make these recommendations not in isolation, but in the context of all the bigger pictures and things. That's why we manage the funds, but that's why we didn't pull out our fund balance. And so we're doing, I think, a miraculous job of managing the funds, providing for our kids. And you can always find something else to spend it on. We had money set aside for emergency that took care of the mold. It was not as bad as we thought it was going to be. So we don't budget this stuff without some thinking about what we need and where we're trying to go.
And I agree. I mean, I think that you were doing a good job balancing and trying to address the needs, because the needs have built up so much over the past decade or so. We had a lot of needs going on. I think my concern is not that. It's not that you're guiding the ship in the wrong direction. It's not so much that. It's finding that balance and what is, and I think while it's your job to do that and bring these needs forward, absolutely the hat you need to have on. I think part of our hat, or my hat as a board member, is to kind of like look at it from a community perspective and find that balance in there. And I'll tell you, I'm getting a little worried that we may be a little off balance. I'm a little worried that I know we're going into the Carpenter, I know we're going into the press box, I know we're going into McMichael, and we haven't seen numbers on any of that stuff yet. So from that standpoint, it's almost like, I'm not saying this is a bad idea, but it's almost like I feel like I need to catch my breath for a minute, because we've been spending so much and going at such a fast pace, and it just worries me that we're losing a little balance.
And I never intended to insinuate that we weren't doing a great job with managing the fund balance, not at all. That isn't at all what I was saying. I agree. I think it just feels, right now, for me, it feels a little bit one-sided.
Yeah, we've done a lot.
Well, again, we've ignored baseball and softball for a number of years. And so the money we're spending is because we've ignored them. And this is catch-up. And so you'll hear from us probably Thursday about the scoreboard at the softball field, which needs to be replaced. We didn't get the numbers in last week. We got them in this morning, but we couldn't have it posted. But so we say athletics, and I hear you. And for a lot of our kiddos, though, if it weren't for athletics, they wouldn't be involved. If it weren't for fine arts, which we've addressed in the auditoriums work that we've done. So we have been looking at a lot of things. And is it fast? Yes, it is. Because our kids don't need to be waiting for us to get comfortable. They're uncomfortable. They're uncomfortable right now.
I think for me, my concern is not, I know that we're going in the right direction, we need to be doing that, and it is fast, but, you know, that is what it is. However, when we're doing these projects, my feeling as a board member, I would like to know that we have done everything to include everything that we need to include when we're doing the projects. And I know that's not always possible, but it gives us a better sense so that if we're gonna spend $50,000 plus another $50,000, that $50,000 is already included in the project, so that we have a better idea that we're not gonna have to spend more money. And that's just where I'm coming from.
Well, and as a rule, I hate change orders also.
Yeah.
But with what the coaches came to me with concern that I addressed to you all in the communication last week, I agreed to change my stance, which normally I don't. And that's why it's before you. And again, as I said, we don't do these things because, halfway and in isolation. Ms. Barwick and I, we sit down and we look at the big picture down the road financially. And if we can do the things that we've talked about and that we have kind of in the back of our mind, then we go ahead and say yes to these things. If we can't see covering the bases in terms of we need the visitor dressing rooms, in terms of needing to fix the press box, in terms of needing some solution for either another gym or some kind of practice facility that you and I discussed. We look at all those things and before I say yes to the next thing. So this is something that I think it would be important for the program. We can afford it. It doesn't negatively impact anything else. And this has been heavily vetted with the appropriate staff so that we could afford this.
One more question on this, because I know that a lot of the parents have expressed to me that some bathrooms out there would be really nice. And so that kind of comes into my priority question of, well, we're spending money on the fence, but have we addressed the bathroom issue, which maybe is a higher priority than the fence
Well,
issue?
in fact, we're in conversation with the company right now to do just that. And so when I said yes to this, it was in context of, can we do that as well? So,
Mr. Fraley, as a person who's been very closely associated for 36 years, I know as we went on, we patched. Now is the time to do it once and get it over with and move on. And I certainly shared the situation on the press box at the baseball field. In my judgment, it needs to be destroyed, moved back, and build separated restroom. It is very isolated, and female and male feel comfortable using it. As a person who stayed by the gate for many years to make sure people enter with a ticket, I realized a lot of them left to use a bathroom somewhere else, then return back. So, and I brought that to their attention many times.
and things like this too, we talk with staff, the end users. These aren't just things I want to do. That's what folks have been asking for, that thankfully we are now in a position where we can actually start doing these things.
And again, my only concern is just making sure that we're ready for anything that might come up suddenly. It seems just in the last, we've had things that come up, and that's the only thing that concerns me.
Well, and we walk you all through the fund balance, and you were okay with it. We're in better position, fund balance-wise, now than even then, and we've encumbered the funds, pay for the things. So this is not that we haven't looked down the road. We're in better shape now to work when you all agree to to start these projects. So I'm very confident, and I think the questions you're asking are very appropriate questions. I think they're very appropriate, and yes, the board has to look at the big picture. But that's what I do as well. That's what I do, and I wouldn't bring anything to you all that we have not considered, and I've said no to a lot of stuff also that I cannot support. But I feel very good about these. I feel good about the school board to come. I feel good about the visitors' dressing rooms that should have been built when you built the gym. They weren't built then. Now we got to build them now. I feel good about the press box and restrooms and concession, and increasing security in those places as well. So I feel very good about it. But again, the questions are the right questions to ask, the right things to be concerned about, very much so.
Thank you. Board, any other questions? Okay. Next, item E, consideration of Daytronics Extended Service Agreement. Mr. Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you all recall, last year we put in a video display board at Nacogdoches High School Stadium. And what we're asking now is that the board approve a service agreement for that video board for the amount of $30,000. The contract for the service agreement is a 3-year contract deal. Many of you may not realize, but that board runs 24 hours a day, every day. So this also includes the parts and labor, as well as a lift truck if they need to get up there and do some repair work on it, and a yearly check of the board and filter change. It has a lot of filters in there that have to be changed out as well. I'll be happy to entertain any questions you have.
My question is, if, say for example, this thing burns out in the middle of a game, are they gonna have somebody come out and fix it right away, or do we have to wait for them to fix it?
They have a response time of 8 to 12 hours. So they won't get there by the time the game ends, but they will be there before the next game.
Mr. Morton, are they taking any action for scoreboard on the girls softball?
No, sir, not at this time. Actually, as Mr. Fraley mentioned just a moment ago, we had originally put on the agenda for this month a girls' school board for softball. And we didn't have all of our numbers in by Friday. We received those today, actually. So I believe Mr. Fraley has mentioned we will be bringing back to you all Thursday night consideration for a scoreboard for the girls softball.
Well, he's certainly old and needs binoculars sometimes to read those numbers.
Yes, sir. Also, probably we'll be bringing back some renderings for you all to take a look at as well.
And another question I have regarding the use of that, since it's on 24/7. The more years we have it, the more possibility is that it's going to break down more. Will that increase our contract with them to service it?
To service it?
You know, I mean, if we do this for them to take care of it, are we going to have to increase it every year to pay them more money to take care of it?
Well, this one will last 3 years. It'll be locked in at 3 years. If we had gone with a one-year contract, say, yes, the one-year contract costs more than a 3 year. So I can't project the future,
Right,
but.
right. No, and I realize that. I just, you know, if we're going to be paying the money, I don't want to have to pay more money. The thing is about trying to save as much money as we can.
Yes, sir. Actually, this quote came in higher than what the price that you see here now. And we went back and talked with them about the pricing and other projects that we were looking at potentially asking for approval for, and they brought that price down to this $30,000.
Mr. Martin, when we put a turf on the field, we made sure we put a certain amount of money aside every year for in case I have to replace or repair. Are we doing the same thing for that scoreboard at the stadium?
We're not doing that right now.
Yes.
But that's something that we need to be looking at,
Yes.
most certainly.
So all of a sudden, it won't be a lump sum that we get nervous about it.
Right. Well, again, that's what we're talking about right now and part of it, again, is Ms. Barbic has a very keen sense of how to manage and tweak things. And that's why the fund balance is in better shape than it was when we first began these projects. Now we're able to pay for more things out of the regular budget by, again, management of it and anticipating where you could create some savings. So we adopt things, but we continue to look at how do we saving it better throughout the year. We never stop talking about, well, she and I never stop talking about the budget and how to manage it more efficiently and effectively and to maximize what we can do for our programs.
I have a couple of questions there. Mr. Martin, I know when we invested and purchased the scoreboard, the plan was that within 3 to 4 years, we thought we would have recouped our investment through sponsorship funds. What's the status of that?
That is a program that our communications department is working on, trying to get sponsorships, as well as some of these other boards that we're looking at getting approval for. We'll have sponsorship ad spaces on them. Hopefully, we will get some sponsors, but it is a program that is still in a work in progress.
So to date, we haven't generated any funds for that to date.
That is correct.
Correct.
Worked with staff, and they said, can we, the folks, we looked at marketing through the high school class as well. And they just said, we're just not ready to pull the trigger on that yet, so can we have a little delay? And so between them and the work we have in communications office, we have not launched an advertising campaign yet.
Okay. My other question was, I'm not 100% clear. Will this be coming out of budgeted funds or out of fund balance?
Can we go back to the budget amendments, and I think your questions can be answered.
Okay. Well, we can wrap back to
I mean,
that.
is it in there?
Okay.
Just answer the question, then we're good.
Ms. Barber, you ready to go back to budget amendments?
Yes.
We have our handout now.
Yes. So, item D, I would like to pull out $764,364 from fund balance to continue using unused construction funds that were left unspent in 18-19. And what I'm asking is, these are fund balance funds that I would have asked for anyway. They were budgeted last year. We had not used them. And then I'm earmarking them. I'm not asking you to pull funds in addition to what I would have already asked for.
So
So-
those amounts were already in the projects that we've already seen? Is that kind of going back to that discussion earlier about the 47,000?
If I'm understanding your question right, so I got with Mr. Martin and found out how much these projects were going to be costing, and I'm earmarking what I would have already asked you for from unused funds from last year, instead of leaving them as
I got you.
future projects that are unknown. I'm earmarking them for these projects, rather than asking you to pull the 764,000 plus these amounts,
Right.
if that makes sense.
Yes, yeah.
And then that still leaves us with $619,000 left over for unknown projects, future projects that would come to, for your approval.
Thank you, Ms. Barber.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah,
Yes.
I followed it.
And then we have money available for future projects. Thank you. This is very clear. Thank you.
Right. Would you like me to go ahead and do
Yes,
the
go ahead.
final? Okay. Item E is budgeting funds received from athletic playoff games, increasing revenue and associated expenses, and that's $630. Item F is budgeting the donations we receive for convocation, so increasing revenues and the associated expenses with that. And then item G is for student nutrition. We had a maintenance worker coded to function 35 rather than 51, and I'm just asking you to move those over to the correct function.
Thank you, Ms. Barber. Board, any questions or comments?
I want to be clear that I understand that what we're doing here, just to kind of clarify, make sure I'm following this correctly. On Thursday, if we were to approve these budget amendments, we are then by default approving the softball scoreboard, baseball PA system, so forth, correct? It would. Okay. I would ask that I don't know where I'm at on these yet, but I would just go ahead and put forward and ask that we move that to the action agenda.
Okay. D and E?
Budget amendments, which would be,
Okay.
yeah, B1.
Would you like to move all of the budget amendments or just particular?
I think I'm comfortable moving all of them. We could do it either way. I mean, whatever y'all are comfortable with, but
Maybe we should just move the ones you have concerns with instead of the other.
What if make them a separate agenda item, period, under just discussion action?
I'll leave it to your
Okay,
discretion
okay.
on how to do
Yeah,
that.
let's make the D from your budget amendment a separate discussion action.
The
Yeah.
entire.
Yeah,
I'm good with that.
those parts, yeah.
Board, any other questions?
Do we want to keep then item D altogether, or do we break it into individuals? Does anybody have a
Are you
feeling
talking
one way or
about-
the other?
Are you talking about D on the discussion?
Yeah.
I'm going back and forth.
No, no, yeah.
Well, I would say
Or
that D,
an all or nothing kind of thing, or, I don't know.
let me offer this. I would probably recommend that we bring them each as individual items, but the mold one, we got to pay for that.
Right. Yeah, that's,
Okay.
I don't think that's, I don't think, I mean, I think that could
Now,
stay probably.
Mr. Fraley, you pulled, I'm having trouble going back and forth between.
I pull item C, the
You pulled
softball.
C, so I would.
Yeah,
so-
the press box is pulled.
So D is the change order for the baseball field, right? Is that what you're talking about? Ms.
Yeah,
Miller?
that's the baseball outfield fence.
It's not the PA system.
And what was the question? I'm sorry.
I think Mr. Fraley answered it. so
Yeah,
I
do we
think-
break them out individually? And I'm going to say that we would break out, you would have a discussion action item for the warranty, discussion action item for the PA system, school board. Kind of make it à la carte, which is not what I always recommend, but I want your comfort level to be a little bit higher than what it is right now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fraley, for my own curiosity, was the air conditioner on during the summertime on Malcolm Rector?
The air conditioning was, and that's another issue, we have to turn the AC off. And when in these old buildings that aren't designed to be efficient, turn the AC off created the issue that made the mold come about. And so we may have saved a few dollars, but we're paying for it now.
That is one of my
And so
concerns.
we'll have to evaluate
during at
that
the summer
practice.
school and the
Yes, sir.
NHS.
Yes, sir, we need to evaluate that practice. Maybe a penny wise and a pound foolish.
Exactly.
Thank you, Board. Any other questions or comments? The Board will now conduct an executive closed session to discuss the items posted on our agenda pursuant to the following provisions of Texas Open Meeting Act and as allowed by Texas Government Code Sections 551.071, 551.072, 551.074, and 551.129. No voting will take place in the closed meeting. Any action the board wishes to take as a result of discussions in the closed session will take place after the board reconvenes in open session. It is now 1:21. The board is now reconvening in open session at 2:02 p.m. Thank you, board. Are there any requests for future agenda items, board? Are there any requests for future agenda items?
Mr. Neal, I'd like to have some information concerning 2019-2020 school year student enrollment and demographic report.
Okay. Sally, you have that? Thank you, sir. Any others, board members?
I'm just gonna keep asking for discipline reports.
Okay, okay. Board, that's our last item. We need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
We have a motion second to adjourn. All in favor, sign by aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all, board.